All right, folks, get ready to put on those detective hats because today we're diving headfirst into a courtroom drama that's anything but ordinary. We're talking murder, mystery, and a jury made up of, you guessed it, the audience.
Oh, I love it when we shake things up like this.
I'm Hari, and with me, as always, is my esteemed colleague and fellow theater enthusiast, ready to unravel this captivating world of Ayn Rand's Night of January 16th.
That's me, I'm Kimi, and you're right. It's a play that truly breaks that fourth wall and puts the power, that judgment, right in the hands of, well, everyday theater goers. Can you imagine?
So our listener, you're intrigued by this play, right? And you want to understand not just the plot, but like the historical context, the things that make it stand out, maybe even like a glimpse into Ayn Rand's mind, right?
Exactly.
So let's start with that title, Night of January 16th.
Oh, mysterious.
It really sets the stage, doesn't it, for a night of suspense and intrigue.
It does, especially considering it initially, way back when, premiered under a very different title, Woman on Trial, back in 1934. It doesn't quite have the same ring to it.
No, it really doesn't capture the essence of the play's dramatic twists and turns.
Not at all.
Speaking of twists,
Yeah.
can you imagine being plucked from the audience and suddenly you find yourself on stage
Oh, God.
as a juror, responsible for deciding the fate of a fictional character? That's the premise of Night of January 16th. It has this whole layer of unpredictability, audience engagement that you wouldn't find in your typical courtroom drama.
Absolutely. And at the center of it all is Karen Andre. She's a secretary, and she's accused of murdering her employer. Now, he's this enigmatic, powerful businessman, Bjorn Faulkner. And get this, he was actually inspired by a real-life figure, Ivar Kruger.
No way.
Oh, yeah. He was known as the Match King, had this huge matchstick empire, and notorious, though, for, let's just say, questionable financial dealings.
So we've got this shadowy businessman, maybe murdered by his secretary, and a jury chosen from the audience. But here's where Ayn Rand really gets clever. We, the audience, we never actually see the murder. We're thrust right into the heart of the trial, trying to piece together the truth. But it's all through these conflicting witness testimonies.
It's like she's given us this puzzle, but there are pieces missing, you know? You got to rely on your own deductions, fill in the gaps, and then you decide guilty or innocent. And she structures it all so meticulously, unfolding the drama in 3 acts.
Oh, so meticulously. All right, so let's break down these acts. Act 1, that sets the stage, introduces the key players, right? And lays the foundation for the accusations against Karen Andre.
Exactly. That's where the prosecution really goes to work, meticulously painting Andre as the scorned lover, driven to murder by jealousy and revenge. They parade all these witnesses, each one offering a piece of the puzzle. You got the medical examiner, Faulkner's very disapproving housekeeper, even his new wife. They all add to the suspicion around Andre.
The plot thickens. So as the prosecution builds their case, we, the jury audience, we're grappling with this evidence, weighing those testimonies, maybe even forming our own judgments about Karen Andre's guilt or innocence. But then Act 2 comes along, and I imagine that shifts the narrative a bit.
Oh, it does. It introduces doubt. That's where the defense attorney steps in, starts poking holes in the prosecution's story. They present a different picture of Bjorn Faulkner, suggesting he may not have been the upstanding businessman everyone thought he was. You know, hint at hidden motives, dangerous enemies.
So the waters get muddy, the lines between victim and perpetrator start to blur, and we, the audience jury, have to reassess. And then, just when we think we're starting to grasp it all, Ayn Rand, she throws in a curveball.
Oh, she does. And it comes in the form of this unexpected character, Guts Regan, a gangster.
Oh, gangster.
Bursts onto the scene, drops this bombshell, and the courtroom is thrown into chaos.
Now that's a dramatic entrance. With Guts Regan, those stakes are higher, the intrigue intensifies, and I bet the audience is buzzing. But I think that's where we'll leave our listeners hanging, eager to discover those twists and turns waiting in the final act of Ayn Rand's Night of January 16th.
Welcome back, everyone, to our deep dive into Ayn Rand's Night of January 16th, where, if you recall, we left off with that pretty dramatic entrance.
Oh yeah, Guts Regan, a gangster bursting into the courtroom. Talk about ending Act 2 with a bang. What did Ayn Rand have up her sleeve for Act 3?
Oh, Act 3 is where it all comes together. All those little threads, all the things we've been questioning, they intertwine and it becomes a whirlwind. Revelations, accusations, and finally that big confrontation. Truth versus deception.
It really sounds like she was playing with us a bit, keeping the audience guessing, challenging how we see guilt and innocence. Was that intentional, do you think?
Oh, absolutely. One of the most brilliant things about Night of January 16th is that it doesn't give you easy answers. There are no simple judgments. It throws you right into this vortex of different views, and you have to sift through it all, right? Figure out what you believe about human motivation, about what's right and wrong, because the lines get blurry.
Almost like she was holding up a mirror to society,
Mhm.
making us look at our own biases, how we see justice,
Yeah.
even our own capacity for deception.
Exactly. And in Act 3, all that comes to the surface. A fake suicide plot is revealed. Then there's a stolen body. Oh, and the accusations. They fly back and forth. You don't know who to trust by the end of it.
Wow, it sounds captivating. All those lies and truths, the suspense, the power dynamic shifting, and then it all comes down to that jury's decision. But in this play, that decision carries even more weight, doesn't it?
It does, because remember, those jurors, they aren't lawyers or judges. They're everyday people, just like us, suddenly thrown into this intense situation. And their decision, it determines Karen Andre's fate, literally. Freedom or imprisonment.
I can't even imagine. And then there are those two possible endings, depending on what the jury decides. It's so intriguing. It's like she's saying the truth itself is subjective. Different people can see things so differently.
Absolutely. And those endings, they aren't just little variations. They're big statements that reflect the deeper meaning of the play. If she's acquitted, Karen Andre thanks the jury. She thanks them for seeing through the deception and recognizing her innocence. But if she's found guilty,
It's much darker, isn't it?
it is. She says this really haunting line about being saved from suicide. So a guilty verdict would have been devastating.
That's Ayn Rand for you,
Oh.
leaving us with those big questions, those moral dilemmas that stay with you after the play is over. Is Karen Andre a victim, this strong woman who wouldn't be controlled? Or was she cold and calculating? Did she orchestrate it all?
And to really understand the play, I think we need to consider Ayn Rand herself. She was a Russian immigrant, fled the Soviet Union, escaped a regime that crushed individual freedom and any dissent.
It makes you think how her own life must have impacted the characters, the themes, even in Night of January 16th, especially since she wrote it in 1933, just a few years after coming to America.
Right, think about it. She was navigating a whole new world, a world that celebrated individual freedom, but also, had its own challenges to that freedom, its own expectations and constraints.
So Karen Andre, with her independence, her defiance of norms,
Mm-hmm.
could she be an embodiment of Ayn Rand's own philosophy, that objectivism thing?
It's very possible. Objectivism, for those who haven't heard of it, it basically rejects altruism and collectivism. It emphasizes individual rights, self-reliance, your own happiness as the ultimate goal.
Interesting. So while Night of January 16th doesn't come out and say, this is objectivism,
It's the same.
the themes are there, right?
Yeah.
Individualism versus conformity, moral ambiguity, personal choice.
Exactly. You see those threads woven throughout the play, and that's how she does it. She takes these complex ideas and turns them into a captivating story. You're entertained, but you're also forced to think critically, question what you believe.
That brings us to the play's journey to Broadway. It wasn't exactly smooth sailing, was it? Kind of reflects those themes of conflict and compromise, art clashing with business.
Oh, tell me about it. Ayn Rand, this young, independent woman full of ideas, up against Al Woods, this veteran Broadway producer. Talk about a clash of personalities.
It sounds like a recipe for disaster. The artist versus the businessman, each with their own vision of what Night of January 16th should be.
And it played out in every way you can imagine. Disagreements over the script, constant revisions, even a script doctor brought in to try and make the play more appealing to the masses. Can you picture the tension in the room?
Ayn Rand, she wasn't known for backing down from a fight, especially when it came to her art. And Al Woods, he knew how to make a hit on Broadway.
And she stood up to him, fought to protect her vision, even if it meant risking the whole production. That says a lot about her.
She even took him to arbitration. Over the script, doctor's fees. And she partially won.
Wow. But here's the thing, and this is fascinating to me. Despite all that, both Ayn Rand and Al Woods, they had their last theatrical successes with this very play. Kind of a bittersweet irony, isn't it?
It really is. Like their conflict somehow infused the play with more depth, more complexity, mirroring those themes of ambiguity and subjective truth that are at the heart of Night of January 16th.
That's a great point. And it brings us back to you, dear listener, and this question that lingers after the play ends. What do you think Andre's verdict should be? Do you believe her? Did she act out of necessity, trying to escape a dangerous situation?
Or do you see a manipulator, someone who used her intelligence, maybe even her charm, to get away with murder?
And what does your verdict say about you? about your values, what you believe about justice, and what motivates people to do the things they do.
These are the questions Ayn Rand wanted us to wrestle with. Night of January 16th. It's more than just a courtroom drama. It's a mirror reflecting our own complexities, our own capacity for both good and evil.
Right. And it doesn't tell you what to think. It lays it all out there, all the messiness of being human, and asks you to engage, to have that dialogue, even if it's uncomfortable.
So as you explore Night of January 16th, embrace the questions. Look at each character closely, see how the power shifts, and pay attention to how Ayn Rand wove her own philosophy into it all.
Get ready to be challenged. Don't be surprised if you end up questioning things you thought you knew. Hopefully, you'll come away with a new understanding of human nature, how hard it is to really know the truth, and how powerful individual choice can be.
And you might finish the play with even more questions. That's the beauty of great art. It stays with you, makes you think, makes you debate long after it's over. You know, as we talk about Night of January 16th, I keep thinking about Bjorn Faulkner and how he's based on a real guy, Ivar Kruger, the Match King. It's not just a fun fact, is it? It feels like Ayn Rand chose him for a reason, like she wanted to say something bigger.
Oh, definitely. Choosing Kruger as inspiration for Faulkner, that was very deliberate. It gives her a way to explore these huge themes like ambition and morality and what happens when people get a taste of power. I mean, Kruger, just like Faulkner in the play, he had wealth, influence, but he was also, well, a manipulator. His whole empire was built on shady deals and, let's be honest, bad ethics.
It's like she's making us look at our own obsession with success,
Yeah.
right? Especially if it comes at a cost. As a society, do we just look the other way when someone gets to the top, no matter what they did to get there? Or do we need to hold them accountable, for how they got there?
I think that is the core question of Night of January 16th. Karen Andre, with her rebellious spirit, her willingness to break the rules, she makes us face our own beliefs about success, about ambition, about happiness, especially in a world where ambition and being ruthless, they kind of go hand in hand. Is she really the villain here, or is she, in a way, a product of this system? A system that maybe rewards ruthlessness and punishes anyone who tries to challenge it.
That question feels so relevant today, With all these stories about corporate greed, corruption, people doing anything to get ahead. Night of January 16th reminds us that chasing success can be dangerous and that our choices, even when we feel trapped, they have consequences. We don't always see those consequences right away, but they're there.
And the play never gives us easy answers. It doesn't say, these are the good guys, these are the bad guys. It gives us all these complex motivations, desires, flaws, and then we have to decide. The audience has to figure it out. What do we believe about these characters? What do we believe about their actions?
And that ambiguity, that lack of easy answers, that's what makes Night of January 16th such a powerful work of art, right? It forces us to think for ourselves, to question what we believe, to maybe face some truths about ourselves, about the world that we'd rather not see. It doesn't tell us what's right and wrong. It just shows us the messiness of life and asks us to deal with it.
Right. It starts a conversation. It's not just entertainment. It makes you think, makes you analyze, makes you question. And that's what makes it more than just a play. It's like a catalyst. Gets people thinking about ambition, morality, happiness in a world that sometimes wants us to just follow the rules, even when the rules are, well, maybe not so good.
So to our listener, if you're about to dive into Night of January 16th, I'd say don't be afraid of the questions. Explore each character, see how power shifts, and think about how Ayn Rand put her own philosophy into it.
Be ready to have your mind blown a little. You might have to rethink things you thought were true, and hopefully you'll walk away understanding people a little better, seeing how hard it can be to know what's really true, and realizing just how much power we each have to make our own choices, even when everyone's telling us to just go along.
And you might end up with even more questions than you started with. But that's the beauty of great art, isn't it? It sticks with you, makes you think and talk about it even after it's over. And on that note, we'll wrap up our deep dive into Ayn Rand's Night of January 16th. Thanks for joining us.